Hello, hello, hello. This is Jeevak here. Welcome to the webinar hosted by Sundberg-Ferar. Nice to see you all. Basically, see you means you are in your home. I am still in my home. We are still under the, I would say, guises of being locked down. So, welcome, 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 welcome. Again, this is just Jeevak, and these are my pets. I let them roam around in the wild, but aren't those beautiful? And we will be talking about nature and beauty today for sure. So hopefully they can be a part of our discussion today too. So I think you are here because you are a designer, a tinkerer, a maker, an engineer, a businessman, or an inventor or a startup person who has wealth of ideas, and or you're already working with a staff at a certain company, and you want to just see how design thinking or industrial design thinking might help us go forward. So as you know from Sundberg-Ferar, we do let's say alternate weeks, one, let's say more serious, more design business kind of a webinar. And this one is not the serious one. This one is a little bit more, I would say fun plus design, but try to work around some concepts and try to throw some light on them. So today we'll be talking about at least two aspects. I think as we're getting feedback from our past attendees, everybody likes the top 10. So today I will do the top 10 on design and nature, the intersection of that, or maybe the way design works under the umbrella of nature. And the second one today, the topic we will spend a little bit more time on is about the world of startups and entrepreneurs. And it's an amazing kind of traction happening over there. And we will try to spend some topics, some musings, some observation on that topic. Also, I got some feedback about trying to add a little bit more personal stories of myself, of how things started and began when I came here to the US. So I think most of the audience loved the Joe story. There is a story just on the morning day of it. Maybe if we get time, I will try to explain a little bit about that story as such. So let's in a way begin. I think, as I said, my name is Jeevak. I'm an industrial designer, and I'm just really just happy. Means happy with every day, right? Every day is a gift. It is still a gift. It is just grateful to just go and use the day for some meaningful purposes as such. And I think I think most of you know the people I love, the people I read about. I think I should start today at least with one of the quotes from Bill Bryson. And we are trying to start with I would say, the world of nature. He says really, really well, consider the fact that for 3.8 billion years, a period of time older than the Earth's mountains and rivers, right? Everyone on our, sorry for this, everyone as our forebears on both the sides, we have been attractive enough, like the ancestors on both of your sides have been attractive enough to find a mate, healthy enough to reproduce, and sufficiently blessed by the fate and circumstances to live long enough to do so. See, the element is, when I say it's a gift, remember, not one of your pertinent ancestors from both the lines of your mom and dad was ever squashed, devoured, drowned, starved, struck by disease like a COVID, or stranded, stuck fast, untimely wounded, or otherwise deflected from its life's quest of delivering a tiny charge of genetic material to the right partner at the right moment in order to perpetuate the only possible sequence of hereditary combination that would result ultimately, astoundingly, all too briefly, in you. We really are in a way lucky that we have survived through this long evolutionary immortal timeline trail to finally be where we are. When we see the world of evolution and all this, let's say, grassroots levels coming in, you, me, everybody, let's say alive in the 7.2 billion population, we represent one of those lines. We are spearheading that line to go forward. Somehow, right now in this world of species and what we are doing to safeguard us, I think it's literally rests on our shoulders to make sure we are alive and taking our species forward, right? I mean, it is not as simple as that. It is not that complex as that, but we have to start to understand some of the things that we have to be using or doing to literally safeguard us. Remember this, nobody thought that this was, sorry, it's my kid's cat, but this was, in a way, when we started with, was a completely different element to have it on your face. I don't have a specs right now, but any specs that are now a part of your facial identity are now accepted. When it started, people hated it. Even carrying umbrellas, it was earlier a part of sun umbrella carried only by aristocrat ladies, and now gents, men, everybody carry umbrellas. So I'm not saying I would love to wear a mask, but if that is going to save our lives, at least for the next 4 or 5 months, maybe we should try to just go and use the objects that we are already garnishing, adding on our face, maybe earring or maybe an eye goggles or sunglasses or a cap or something like that too. It's not that bad. Means just consider another element. Let's say if you talk with your elders or you, let's say your grandfather, let's say let's talk about people who were born in 1900. Let's start with their timeline. You're born in 1900. When you're 14 years old, what happens? World War One happens. 22 million people dead. Not to top that, in 1918, when you're 18 years old, Spanish flu happens. I think 52 million people dead. When you are just 29 years old, 1929, what happens? One of the New York Stock Exchange fails. One of the biggest financial crisis leads into inflation, Great Depression, famine. If you look at the images of people standing for a loaf of bread, you will go bonkers. Things were ugly at that time. That was when you were 29 years old. You go to 33 years old, Nazis started. Hitler comes, Hitler's political party comes, and when you're 39 years, the World War II starts. It affected the entire world. Means amount of the frustration, the aggravation, the helplessness, the fear, everything was just going crazy at that time. And that lasted in 1945, right? World War II, I think more than 60 million people dead. Out of that 6 million Jews for the Holocaust kind of thing, is huge numbers to us to understand. If you are 52 years, Korean War came, 64, the Vietnam War came, the oil crisis, eventually going beyond that. Now we have seen the dot-com bust, the real estate bust. As human species, we always have been thrown things, literally bricks at our head. But no matter what, the human species at itself always persevered. We are always stronger. We always find out different applications to protect each other. And imagine the case of today, right now, right? We have electricity, we have water, we can still have groceries. In a way, most of us, luckily, can still work from home. We also have Netflix and Prime. It is bad, but it is not that bad if you take in context what our immediate earlier generations have faced with. So literally, having said that, we are still, means it's just lucky just to have every day as a gift and try to make sure we are using it meaningfully, I would say, and compellingly as such. Means I do not want to override with quotes over here, but I just love two authors. One of them is Bill Bryson and other is Carl Sagan. We have to take care of human species because that's what we're going to take care of this biomass, this globe, right? Of that we are, because this is my home. Around you, that is your home. This planet itself is our home, right? And on it, this is again Carl Sagan's quote, on it is everybody you have ever loved, everybody that you ever know, everybody that you have ever heard of, everybody is living on this earth. Means the aggregate of joy and suffering, thousands of confident ideologies and economic doctrines. Every hunter, every forager, every king, every pheasant, every hero, every coward, every creator, every destroyer of civilization or economy. See, everybody in love, every father, every expectant mother, every hopeful child, every inventor, explorer, teacher, scientist, doctor, every corrupt politician, every supreme leader, every superstar from Hollywood, every saint, every sinner in the history of your species has lived right here on this pale blue dot, right? On this mote of dust suspended in the sunbeam. That was Carl Sagan, not me. But that's the only speck we know. This is the only place we have. Means right now, if you are looking down at our solar system from Jupiter or something, you can see a big banner on Earth, right? Earth under repairs. It's rightly so. We have to understand there are plenty of uncertainty around right now. There's plenty of unknownness about COVID and other elements over there. But somehow we should persevere, and as designers, as businessmen, as tinkerers, as inventors, we are and we should be eventually helping to take care of that. So that was in a way, a kind of my monologue based on the dialogues and I was in dialogues, the quotes from what we heard from those amazing writers as such. So we can safely now go to the next one. And again, as we're talking, if you want to send any emails or any suggestions as we go forward, we have to do that, because I think there has to be optimism. There is optimism, but now we have to show that optimism in how we work, how we look at it, how we think ourselves. There are so many counterintuitive noise in the system. And you're talking about design world also now. Now we are not talking about, let's say, the COVID pandemic world, but in the design world also, when we are looking at designing anything, it might be a mature category product, or it might be a completely new arrangement of ideas. We have to understand how to take care of the noise in the system. Like the things that we learn on Instagram or WhatsApp or other things are one to understand what's happening, but then we have to go really deep in design research to understand what really matters, what is essential, and now what is unessential. Every kid, every elder person now really knows what is essential, what is in a way unessential as such too. So I think the optimism is there. We are working as a studio. We are helping out a lot of companies. That's a part of what we do as a business. But I think we can see a little bit again the inkling of optimism coming up, even though what is happening out in the lockdown in the world is going to happen. So that's the first part as such. I think we can directly jump into our top 10. This is a top 10, but I will not list them 1, 2, 3, 4, but they are aggregation of what we would try to think about the nature. And nature is there pretty importantly, because it just talks about the beauty aspect in a completely different way. And beauty means, I think for any product, there are 5 different dimensions that we bring to the table: the beauty, the behavior, the culture, the context, and the value. So today we will not be talking about all of them. We might talk with the slice of beauty right now pertaining to the world of nature. So the first aspect over there is we really have to understand, let's say we don't understand design or industrial design thinking. I think we have to understand how we, as our own existential experience, is there on this natural bio globe as such. So for that, let's go back in time. Actually, let's go way back in time. Let's try to make an attempt to understand the concept of that experience of time. So again, Bill Bryson said this: if you spread your arms, you might do this in your house right now, you may not, but if you spread your arms and from tip to tip, from this fingernail to this fingernail tip, that's a pretty long fingernail, this side is the beginning of Earth. I'm not saying beginning of the universe, just beginning of Earth. And this tip of fingernail is just the beginning of, let's say, is the present time today. And today, right here, but you can wipe out the entire element of human history on this planet by a single swipe of a nail file. And that's how ephemeral or how latest we are on this globe, right? Means our predominant existence and experience on this globe is tempered with the survival tactics and the co-evolution of both the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom. Let me take you back at least till 200 years, not so 100 years, sorry, 200 million years ago in the world, when it was not as colorful as this. It was, the worm was a little bit more sleepy, more drab. It was only ferns and I would say mosses, moss, lichen, conifers, no fruits and flowers. The angiosperms had still to evolve. Mostly nothing moved except dinosaurs. Dinosaurs ruled at that time. But then let's go this 100 million years after that. That became the time when the flowers and bees, yes, today we're going to talk about flowers and bees. Flowers and bees came and it changed everything. See, now we have flowering plants, the angiosperms. Now they did not have to rely on just wind and water to move their genes. Everybody, and we can talk about the conservation of biological laws to start with. There are only 3 laws, and that is point number 2. See, now they can enlist the help of animals and creatures or insects and bees and birds to do so. And that's when the first design contract was signed. Means now, in our experience, we have been signing design contracts each and every day. But that was the time, 100 million years ago, the first grand co-evolutionary contract between these 2 kingdoms, the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom, was signed. And that was the exchange of nutrition to transportation of the genes, right? Means the evolution of plants possessed now a new motive force. Like just like any design, what is the motive force behind doing that? That for plants was the attraction of species for pollination. And so the desires of the creatures became paramount. You are an inventor, you want to design a product, but you have to understand the desires of the creatures of the businesses you're going to help with. So now for the plants, the desires and the needs and the wants and the dreams of creatures is paramount. And so the flowers became bigger, they became brighter, they became colorful, more fragrant, more contrast. That's a pretty big thing in nature, actually. And so, apart from that, attention was also seeked out with symmetry, which is an unmistakable sign of something really good over there. Even till day, like right now, when you look at any automotive design, there is not a functional need to be symmetrical, but it is always symmetrical. Symmetry is significant. And so, on the overall context, the shape, the color, the pattern, and the symmetry, which are in fact the hallmark of beauty, not in the natural world, but also in our products and man-made worlds, suddenly became important. And we have been learning and listening to it. It's there, it's tactile. We know when we look at something, what is beautiful or not. It all started 100 million years ago. But then flowers started putting fruits also, right? More sugar, more proteins to lure the creatures back to them. And then when we say that, look, those fruits look yummy and colorful, now the mammals started to evolve during this reign of dinosaurs, right? Means we all came, if you believe in the world of evolution, from the smaller rodent kind of and things, right? We were just nocturnal animals. And at that time, our vision was only black and white. There's another third or fourth point of top 10 in nature, which actually tells, which I can tell right now about evolution. Evolution is pretty interesting, but it never regresses. There are only two elements in the entire proliferation of species that it actually regressed, and it happened with the mammals. And that's one of the reasons why I would say the mammals are where they are in this entire pecking order. Our vision was black and white at that time. We literally lost by leaps and bounds to the vision of the other kingdoms, like birds, excellent vision. Owls and peregrine falcons, means we are just nobody in front of them. And that's the main thing. I think I can stress more about that. The most important radical element of the entire evolution was that we regressed, we redeveloped our sight. Means when I say we, means the mammals, our ancestors, for color perception. And that is an anomaly, because nature never goes back on itself. And that's where when we say we understand nature, we cannot say nature is amazing and cool. It is, but not everything. There are some aspects of nature we should never follow. And this is one of them, where you cannot go back and regress. Once you start something, you just keep on going. We don't do that in design. We have to make sure we do this iterative loops. When you say design is iterative, that's the main thing, is we understand we go down this branch, not completely right. We come back again, we do another round, we go down this branch. So there are things that we understand and learn from history, understand from the knowledge gaps, and say, okay, this is what not worked, this is what would work. And then eventually, I think that was the foreshadowing, coming back to the regression of vision from black and white to color again. I think that was the indicator of how mammals eventually became the most prolific and dominant on this planet. But coming back to now, we humans right now, in the way we are doing all the design and marketing and branding and commercialization or advertisement aspects of it, we are instinctively born with the same predisposition. Like the bees are instinctively drawn to the flowers. By the way, flowers are the most engineered part of the entire tree, and they also happen to be beautiful. There is an amazing co-branding, it's a good word too, between design and engineering world happening. There's a functionality of the flower to attract bees and proliferate with the genes, and that's why they are beauty. Beauty is ingrained with the functionality as such. In the same way, our brains are developed under the pressure of natural selection to make us good foragers, right? Because that was, as I said, almost 99.9% of our time on this globe. See, presence of flowers, they go back to cavemen or people, let's say earlier Homo sapiens. Presence of the flowers, these colorful flowers out there in the forest, is a pretty reliable predictor for future food, because where there are flowers, there are going to be fruits, especially for groups in the hominids who could remember that in the landscape, that over there behind that ridge, I had seen some flowers, because versus to the other people who were blind to their significance as such. So literally flowers, that's fruits, meant future food for the survival of our species as such. And that's how the world starts with understanding, like why beauty becomes suddenly It's not suddenly becomes an integrative part of what we do. And when I say beauty, it's just like the rhombus and the square. Not every rhombus is a square, but every square is a rhombus. So in the same way, not every beautiful thing is design, but design is always making sure that you are talking about beauty over there. So the second point here is beauty and sex. Yes, we should understand beauty in nature, and I know in the man-made world too, often shows up in the vicinity of sex. Coming back to the laws of let me at least go with the laws of the flora and fauna. There are three basic laws. One is the conservation of energy. Typically, every animal will try to be as lazy in a way as he can, or try to suggest how they are going to use their bursts of energy to catch food. Even a cheetah or a leopard, 9 out of 10 efforts of catching a gazelle go fail. So they have to really be looking out for that expediency of the way they use energy to catch something. Just because they're a leopard, that doesn't mean every attempt is successful or not. So the first is conservation of energy. Second is where we are coming over here. So, but the third one is not risk takers. Like humans are risk takers. We go into a parachute and jump down and do skydiving. We jump and go spelunking. A tiger, if it comes to a cliff, it will never jump down. It will typically never jump down. So they understand the risks and they do not go and use the risk as gamification, where humans, we just go beyond those boundaries, except in the world of sometimes mature innovation. And the second law of conservation was, we are always pleasure seeking animals. The pleasure comes from food. That's our weak point. And sex. I don't need to talk about that, but not that everybody has that on their mind, but it's a pretty part. If you think you are that person, no, it's because of the instinctual worlds of the way you are pre-wired to think about sex, that eventually reproduction and food. And that food thing is a part that causes obesity also in this world, because of the way of these distractions and us trying to look out for this high energy, sugary kind of a starchy food. So by the way, I got some notes last time that we should talk about design and fitness or nutrition, and maybe I can attempt that next time. So coming back again to the beauty in the natural world always shows up in the vicinity of sex. Let's say think about birds. I don't have any extraordinary birds here. Those are just nice warblers, but think about the plumage of a peacock, or the mating rituals in an animal kingdom. See, sexual selection, the evolution favoring features that increase the attractiveness, and therefore the reproductive success is the best explanation the biology scientists have for this otherwise senseless indulgence of feathers and flowers, or colorful sneakers that I wear, or I'm not wearing, but a fancy watch, or the inside coat for any jacket. It's senseless, but it is not senseless. It's counterintuitive actually, because there's another point. The third element is beauty and health. Not just sex, beauty and health. There is a very strong correlation of beauty and health in our world. Let's say design world, beauty and function or engineering, because being healthy is good. Evolutionary biologists believe that in many creatures, beauty actually is a very good indicator of health. Gorgeous feathers, lustrous hair, symmetrical features are certificates of health. A fabulous tail, let's say for a tropical bird, is actually the evidence of the metabolic advantage and the extravagance that only the healthy can afford. Similar to right now, like owning a Ferrari right there on my driveway. No, it's nothing is there. It just plants there. But people who flaunt the opulence, I would say, by the objects they buy, there is a reason for that, because that's again an extravagance they can only the healthy or the rich or the design friendly can afford. So in a natural world, beauty is everywhere. Like not just animals, like when you a random sunset. You go to Antelope Canyons in the West, it's just like beauty is omnipresent. And not only that, the way the attributes of beauty are, they have primed your thoughts and perceptions at each day and every day in your evolution as such. It is not just subjective on a society or a culture, but it's a universal part of this human human animal thinking. So just beauty itself is soothing, it's calm, it's collected, it's sometimes bring order to our chaotic life. There's a reason when we get up in the morning, we make our beds. Is there any functional attribute to that? No, it's all emotional attributes to that. About, okay, you go on, we do your first task, it looks good. at the end of our dinner or something, we clean out the kitchen. There is very functional reason for that. Next day you can just come and just try to take care in the chaotic vision. No, the order and the pleasing arrangement of the things that you want or want to use, it is ingrained in us. And that's why we have to just understand the entire context of beauty in this other world. Again, it's not just beauty. You have heard me speak about that. It's the behavioral aspect, the cultural aspect, the pop cultural aspects, the contextual part of it. And we'll talk about that a little. So that was the first three, I would say, top three of what we should be talking about in the world of nature. Let me have a sip here. Cheers, everybody. Hope they have their favorite drink. I cannot drink anything else, but just in a mug. You never know what's inside. You must be seeing some steam coming out of it. Other part of the top number 4 for nature actually is I would say, which one I take? The gene pool one is really interesting, and that has a direct bearing on how we think of design as such. So I forget the name of the author, Charles. He's a UK-born author. He wrote some nice books, and he talks about gene pool. And the way he explains, he's a biologist. He explains in the world of biology, and we're going to apply it to the world of industrial design. So the gene pool is like, let's say you are a camel, but think about a camel in the Sahara Desert. The way it has evolved with the features on his body, like long eyelashes to close the eyes during a sandstorm, or the padding on its feet, or the amount of water it can store in this, and the fat it can store in his hump, and all those things have been evolved in response to the elements around in that Saharan desert. Well, take care of any Serengeti plains, right? If you look at the lion in a Serengeti plain, let's start with the deer. The way it has been evolved to get even cues from the ecosystem is what keeps it alive. Even the way let's say it knows what is good thing to do, when to go to a water hole to drink, when to run away from a tiger or a cheetah, not a tiger in Serengeti, sorry, it will only be lion or cheetahs. Tigers are in the Indian, Indonesian, and other Indian subcontinent only in the world. So the deer knows what cues to look at in the savannah to make sure it has to survive. But the element now here is, even in the lion kingdom, even the lion cubs know how to stalk, how to be camouflaged, how to be stealthy to go and get that gazelle. So the element of here is the ecosystem. When we say molds or tells the products or the animals how they have to evolve to run, to do tight circle turns around to escape from a predator. But the important part is the same savanna is there. The ecosystem is the same. How does it get applied to a deer and their species, or how does it get applied to a predator and their species is different? And that's the main thing. In coming back to the world, it's all responding to how things are happening and making sure to the right things that are happening. So when you are, let's say, a coffee cup designer, is going to be in this system, but how to pin and connect the dots. When we say connect the dots, that's not a good way to say, the way we will say connect the right dots. In that savanna pool, if you want to design the next tiger cub, again tiger, the next lion cub, what would be the attributes over there? So the selection of dots happens in the same savanna, which will be different from a deer. That's what we have to understand when we do for any product as such. Like, okay, you cannot just copy paste because there are features for here for this. I'm having some amazing fancy sneakers over here in the same ecosystem. I will use those attributes to design my water bottle over there. It just cannot happen. You have to understand what is the force field around you, just like the Higgs field around you, and that defines what happens for the particles or the mass inside. The same thing in the ecosystem. We have to understand that no single good product can be designed in isolation. You have to understand the ecosystem. That's the fifth, top 5 part. You have to understand the context of the ecosystem, and then make sure your object really sits in almost seamlessly in that existence, because it has to survive on its own. Just as those pears have to survive on their own on Serengeti, your product has to survive on its own in the market. No amount of commercials or advertisements are going to push you when it's out in the market. It's good to instigate, ignite the conversation, get people towards your website or e-commerce site and sell your product. But once it's out in the market, it has to be on its own. The market out there has no obligation to be kind to your product. It just has to survive based on how you do your design research from the world of commercial applications, from the world of commercial viability, from the technical applications, from the emotional applications. And that's why making sure you understand the gene pool you are in, the ecosystem you are in, and how that works. That means literally in any ecosystem, maybe the top sixth one, any ecosystem, I'm looking at time too, you're going to look at how everything is connected. Anywhere you go, in your backyard too, there will be worms, there will be insects, and the birds will be coming, hopefully eating all the insects. And that's why it's good to have these as pets out in the wild. But then there's a pecking order, how they interact with each other. There are other animals who might be eating the birds and their chicks, how it's entirely connected as such too. We know that the same thing happens in the world of an ecosystem. It might be an ecosystem of a kitchen. It can be an ecosystem of an, let's say, commercial kitchen, or maybe an operation theater. You have to understand how the context and how the field feeds you into those elements. Maybe the top sixth or top seventh, wherever we are right now, is another one, which is called the arms race. It's actually a technical jargon, but arms race happen in the nature a lot. And the same thing also should happen in the world of let's say our industrial design and making of tools and objects as such. So when you say in the nature of the arms race is, I do not know if you are aware, but there are, let's say talking about birds, there are birds who are brood parasites. Like literally in the morning we had outside, I can see the window from outside, there was a brown-headed cowbird. It is a parasite. In a way, it doesn't build its own nests. The female just lays its eggs into some other nest and she just flies away. And not only she does that, and cuckoos also do that. They also are doing that right now everywhere in the world. But not only that, a cuckoo comes in, she just lays in her egg in let's say in another nest, a robin's nest, and she throws one egg away. So when the real mom comes in and she looks at the eggs, the count is the same, the color, the texture, the size is almost the same, and she just starts incubating them as one of her other kids. But essentially, I know we are a little bit going on a tangent, but just to complete the story, when the chicks hatch, the first chick that hatches is that of a brood parasite. Their time, I should say, the hatching time is less than the real one. And what the chick does, the first thing is it literally throws away all the other eggs to the ground. And then the real mom starts feeding this, even though the chick looked different, completely different, she just starts feeding it. So anyway, the arms race is when the real parent also starts to identify what is something wrong over there. So it's I see you one, I raise one ante, I see you one, I raise one ante. That happens in the world of moths, in animals, and everybody's trying to not fool, but get a symbiotic advantage as much as possible to go in the world. Remember then the three laws, like trying to be as lazy or as conserving energy as you can. These parasite brooders go to the extreme end. So the answer is that we have to understand how people have been exposed to different sentiments, different habits, different patterns, and the sensibilities or sensitivities have been matured or maybe even killed. And as a design studio or as a designer, we have to understand what is now the newer level of differentiation when we say uniqueness and compelling kind of products, or maybe I would say the distinction that you want. That distinction has to be right for that time too. Means right now, what we do right now, it might be distinct 10 years ago, but now it's maybe a part of the commodity. So the commodity kind of a wave is always creeping up in all these new innovative products. So as a studio, it's after a few years, you have to start making sure that you are always keeping it fresh. And there is a burden to doing that. And every category has its kind of a time horizon. But when the time horizon comes, for some it might be 2 years, for some it might be 10 years, but understanding that kind of an arms race element where, okay, this is the right time to keep on changing your latest prototypes, because not just a new CEO comes and does that, but because of this creeping up the tidal wave that's coming behind you in the worlds of arms race, to make sure you're always fresh, always in line with the pop culture. And that's where the context comes in pretty lot about how people are going to define it or redefine it as such. So we talked about top 7. Let me at least complete 2 or 3 more. It's herd mentality is one that we always hear about in a nature, but I don't want to maybe spend more time on that. But we understand earlier people were in a way more of a herd mentality where they did not have access to the communications and social media that we have right now. Now, because of the herd mentality, earlier people just flock to one brand because that's what we heard about. Now people are a little bit, they will always clever. Now they have actions to be more smarter in really finding out exactly what do they want, what do they stand for, where they're going to spend money, where they would not be wanting to spend their money. Maybe at least one in the top 10, maybe ninth one and then 10th one. Ninth one, I will like to at least say something, the quotes of John Muir. He's one of the greatest, I would say, person to help in the conservation movement, the Muir Woods and all those things started from that. And this was early 1900s. But he has an amazing quote, and I'm going to paraphrase it right now. But he always says, when you are on a hiking trail, or when you are amongst nature, it's very difficult to get upset. And it's true. When you go for, I love to go for trail runs and hikes. Whenever you're in nature, it's very difficult to get upset. It's just, there's nothing significant in that. But once you read it and once you go back and say like, yeah, dang, well, I was walking for 2 hours and I was pretty cool and composed and calm and thinking aloud or thinking for what my means to happen. So there are some amazing quotes by that amazing personality. Maybe the last, the top 10 part of it at least would be, I always make an analogy of who we are, right? The difference between a farm and I would say and a garden. So as a design studio, we are the garden. As a client or a company, you are the farm. So the fun I say farm means when, imagine you have corn rows and rows and rows of corn planted, everything is good. And that's your idea. That's the product you're going to sell, product or service or interface as such. And the maturation has to be that level where everything is systematic, it's literally an assembly line, and it just goes out and you just fulfill your inventory. In the world of a garden area is we want to make sure that we understand interloping, understanding different elements happening, do cross-pollination, cross-referencing, literally do grafting from different elements and ideas and patterns and sensibilities in the market, and then create that kind of an one sapling, which eventually will be cloned in the farm, in the world of a client. So you can just keep on printing and keep on printing money and just keep on printing the product. So it helps in your production world as such. So we like to consider ourselves as that kind of a garden area where we're always bustling with ideas, right? As a studio means, I think most of you know we are the second longest standing studio in the nation, and there's an amount 86 years and counting. And the amount of collective wisdom that just happens and resides is the main element that people try to somehow seek us out in. Like we know the engineering part of it or the hardcore kernel of it. Now we want to make sure it fits into the context, because the context context and the culture rules over the function and strategy most of the time. So that would be the top 10, at least from the nature perspective. And there are more, and eventually we try to make sure we create articles based on this. So in the article, I can add a couple of the other points in the top 10 also too. So what should we do? We have we have bifurcation over here. We have 20 minutes to go. I can literally tell a short story, a personal story, and I can make it fast. And then we can at least say save the last 12, 20, 30 minutes, at least for the world of entrepreneurship as such. So talking about a short story, I think most of you might have heard that story of the cup of joe or the cup of coffee. This happened literally in the morning of that. So to put it in context, I came here 18 years ago, came to GM Design Studio. I flew in, let's say yesterday at that time, and the next day morning, I have my first day to report, right? Couple of things happened right on the airport also when I was renting a car. Maybe that can be for the next time. Early morning, got up. It was not early. I think I had to reach there at 9:30ish or 9:45ish or something. So pretty late in the morning. I had landed here in February. Cold. Means I came from India. I did not really understand when you say cold and bone chilling cold or just frozen land over here. Had no idea. But I knew I was coming to Detroit. So it was February. It was cold. I don't know. It was -10, -15, whatever the amazing things were. Got up, reached the parking lot of GM. Means, yeah, the maps were there. Understand the satellite maps and all those things. I was driving my first vehicle. It was a Honda Civic, a 1994 Honda Civic, second hand, but it was a really good car. I miss it. A manual kind of a thing. Parked it. Now, I do not know. GM Design Center, if you know, means the parking lots are big. It's massive. And then because my timing was pretty late in the day, 9:30 or something, the parking lot I had was almost half a mile away. I parked it over there and started walking in snow in the frozen world all the way to the foyer, or I would say the vestibule of design studio. Now, mind you, I I had my cold clothings or warm clothings on, but it was all designed in India. It was not the warmthness or the hat I had. It was just it was a joke. I still have them. It was a joke. They were not ready enough or strong enough to make sure it saved me from the cold over there. But I was so happy, man. Look at that. It's a young boy from India, finally reaching his destination, going to GM Design Center. First day, I was still trudging to the snow. I came to the vestibule, the revolving doors, and I do not know. Check yourself or Google yourselves right now, GM Design Studio or foyer or lobby. It's means I'm an industrial designer. I learned about architectural world to Eero Saarinen and one of the amazing designers. He designed that building and the lobby too. I had always seen the pictures in couple of look that to black and white in the design history world. But can you imagine? I'm entering this amazing, prestigious world of lobby, the revolving door. I just walk in. Imagine a 80, 100 feet kind of an rectangular box and maybe 50 feet across rectangular glass box. And on the left is that amazing, iconic, the tea and cup saucer design. That's where the receptionist or the front salesperson, not sales, front person sits. On the right, an amazing lounge area. I think they had the Vasily, Wassily, Vasily chairs over there. They also had a 1967 Chevy Nomad over there. And next year I knew they came out with the concept Nomad, but that's why the Nomad was out there in the lobby. Amazing, beautiful. I think it was a nice blue color. Right in the center, if you see, there was this floating stairs that was designed by Eero Saarinen. Means they were literally floating at that time, strung with nice metal rods or metal cables, water below, a nice kind of a fountain in the back. It was like, wow, I think I'm still I almost entered heaven. I was just looking at that and just like, this is it. And I was trying to walk towards the receptionist. And I was getting in this amazing world of being in, this is the toyland for me. Like, this is it. Finally, it is done. And the blonde girl lady was looking at me with a quizzical look. Just behind her was a security guard. Big, strong football player, kind of an ex-football player, security guard. They looked at me. And they looked at me they were staring at me. Means, yeah, I know I'm foreigner, but I was decently dressed, not a shabby kind of thing. I was not in traditional Indian clothes and I had a turban on my head or a dot on my head. It was decently there. I still had a mustache, but as I walked towards her and I was trying to tell her like, hey, this is my card and I'm here for I'm already an employee and I'm here to talk with the HR people. This is the card of that person. The security guard comes in and says, "Are you okay, sir?" I said, I could not even, I understood it. I could not comprehend it. Are you okay? It's a pretty strong voice. And he already was speaking. When people do this on the airport or anywhere else, I still like, I did not do anything. I'm legal immigrant over here. But he was saying something and he was asking me, are you okay? Are you okay, sir? What happened? What happened? I was just going with my broken record. Like, I'm here to see the HR guy. This is my name in my accented English. The other guy from a room behind, this other security guard, big guy, came in and they both literally came towards me and said, are you okay, sir? Tell us what happened. And they started to take me back. Behind the tea saucer thing, there is a door. I did not know what behind that was. Can you imagine my plight? In these two amazing big football players, security guards, and they're asking me, urging me to come with me. And I'm seeing myself walking with them. means it's a terrifying situation to be in. I was almost in my heaven, and immediately I am, what's happening? And they are just very earnest requests. They are not threatening, but they were just like, "Are you okay, sir? Tell us what happened." And they took me inside the room. The door opened. It was a restroom, man. Sink and the faucet and the mirror. And there I see in the mirror, means there was blood from over here going around my mustache all the way down over here. Means yesterday I came from India. In the morning when I walked that half a mile from the parking lot to the studio foyer, the capillaries inside had completely burst and blood was oozing out. This was all numb because it was just cold. I could not feel it, but they saw it. They literally saw blood over here. And from their perspective, like, what the fish happened? Were you mugged inside GM campus? How would that happen? I mean, they were ready to like tell us where it happened and we will go and break his knees kind of a thing. And I was saying like, oh, now I know what's happening. It just, yeah, blood from my nose. Don't worry, just a bloody nose. Nobody got me. Nobody got your new GM employee into trouble. And I was trying to tell them, just hush, hush, no problem. Like, don't create any more commotion. I just want to go in and start working. I cleaned myself up. I came outside. Until that time, they had a security guard. They had an ambulance out there. They wanted me to fill a form or something. I said, guys, please, it's my first day. Just bear with me. Bring this guy from HR and take it later. So it all ended well. Means eventually the HR guy came. He had no idea. He was pretty busy. Like, what's this? You look okay. Let's go in. And we took care of stuff. But the element here is we have to understand the different perspectives of how people are looking at you, at your product. Designers are never the users. We are trying to do something with our own paradigms and our own, I would say, perceptions or insights or experiences, which is very kind of insensitive and difficult to understand too. But we have to somehow see how people are looking at the same thing with their mental models. It was a simple thing, and it was not simple for me to undergo it. But eventually, like, yeah, it just bloody knows that this was the first time it happened with me. But now we are cognizant to make sure we are at least getting those kind of 2 or 3 different point of views, and that's what happens. I would say when you go to a studio, any studio, our studio, any studio, is when you get that kind of a collectivism, and as deep as it is, as diverse as it really helps making sure like, hey, you were looking at this thing, I think it is this thing. And the sooner you do that in a design world and capture those kind of an construction, misinformation, or the misinformation building that happens in front of other users and other mental models, that's where we have to start to deconstruct, like, how are people going to see it, not me or you. So that was that amazing experience of understanding the architectural design world, and then just looking at how the physiology overrules your mental preparedness. I was happy. I'm still happy, but sometimes the physiology, the body just like doesn't react to it. Now it's completely okay. Now when I go over there back in India, not this year, now I complain about the mugginess and the hotness and the stickiness. Anyway, we still have, 13 minutes as such. The second part is about the entrepreneurship as such. One thing is, if you're a startup or an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur in a big company, this is the best time to be. See, what is happening is COVID is bad, but right now we are experiencing and seeing literally the evidence of an amazing good explosion of startups and entrepreneurs, and coming up with that. Everybody has $1 million idea. And now because of where we are, people want to make sure they're investing in it, right? And design is investment, not an insurance. So we are seeing that kind of an amazing element happening. And as a studio, we help that constituency a lot. Means right now, it's amazing works we're doing with entrepreneurship locally, and also nationwide too, a nation around too. The element there is we have to understand is, no matter what, we have to understand the statistics. And it's still right now in the US, one of the most innovation advanced countries in the nation, 85% of startups fail in the first 3 years. 85%. And one of our, let's say, goals in that area is to make sure, change that, I would say, statistics as much as possible. Because I think we still think the missing element of design, industrial design thinking, of how to make sure that product, like when you say good product, it has to align with the good business part of it, how the alignment has to be, how the product has to survive the wrath of the market or the ecosystem is going to be. So that's what the main alignment happens. That means just having a good idea is not good enough. It has to make sure, it has to go, like we are designers, we are very biased about design, but design is not the only thing that makes your business successful. There are so many other parameters that you have to understand. You have to understand the constraints in the ecosystem. It might be distribution, it might be filling HIPAA forms, or trying to talk about data security, or the data, I would say, privacy of it. There's so many elements to look at and understand, where it has to play with them. And still coming back to the top 10 of the nature, the natural frequency, I did not cover that, but it has to still in a way naturally fit into that ecosystem. People always try to find, as the laws of conservation tell us, when I say we are lazy, we always try to make sure we conserve our energy, right? And that's why people, every human, everywhere in the world, they always try to go and try to follow the path of least resistance. If you want to get a new product over there, a new product is one thing, but if you want it to change the behavior or change the way they're investing into the products in their company or institutions, then you have to understand what is the least way of resistance, how they want to not dislodge. They would not have to dislodge their entire business model or make a big dent to accommodate your product. You have to understand how it makes sense to them. And if you're a startup or entrepreneur, one of the main elements that you must have learned is you will make money only when other businesses will start making money off you. It's simple, but it's really important. Like if you are creating a product and you are selling it to, let's say it's a B2B product, you're selling it to businesses, those businesses have to make sure it naturally fits into their ecosystem and it generates money for them. That's the reason they will buy your product. It's not rocket science we're talking about, but being cognizant though to those things and making sure then the design aligns with not just your business model, but the businesses that you're going to help with, understanding their pain points. Like the product, they can literally go and buy, but the system through which they want to go, it might be very painful. There might be a different kind of an insurance cost to it, different ways of policies behind it that might restrict them into using that. Making sure we are always trying to understand those things, and then making sure. So it's a classic thing about chicken and egg thing, right? Means do you start with the world, with the market, and then solve the product, or just have your first prototype and then go over there? It has to be done in motion, but understanding those contexts of the evolution of the economy are really, really important than just having something in the hand and showing off over there, because then people will try to think about their mental models rather than what you must have been thinking about that. And that's the element where a design studio has to be really cognizant, right? Means it's every inventor or startup or entrepreneur, they love their idea, right? It's their baby. And as they say, there's only one beautiful baby in the world. Seriously, there's only one beautiful baby in the world, and every mother has it. And that's a problem, because people think, how can I say my baby or your baby is ugly? I mean, my baby is ugly. He just looks exactly like me. One of them, the other one actually is lucky. She went over her mom. But the thing is, you have to understand that emotional aspect is for living organisms. We should try to come back to the world of man-made objects. They are not living. So we can talk about the ugliness. And when I say ugly, not the physicality of it, but is it robustness and endurance and corrosion resistance and the functionality, and all those things have to be thought of. Those are the attributes that finally make it good, bad, or otherwise ugly as such. So that element of making sure the baby and manual objects, that's a thing of the past. We have to make sure we will be doing product design to make sure your business is successful. And in that business, there are plenty of parts. One of them is the design part of it, right? But another facet here is, we have 5-6 minutes more. Another fact, people always say like, hey, the Yeti guys did it, or Patagonia brothers did it, or Mark Zuckerberg, he just wanted to get laid, and that's why he did his small interface and had friends and talked with here and there. Yeah, it happened. They're billionaires right now, literally billionaires right now. But somehow all the planets came into alignment over there, and that's my opinion, unbeknownst to them. They were super users. They were the lead users. The Patagonia brothers, they were the lead users on the rock climbing thing. It was not that I'm sitting over here, I'm going to design something for that ecosystem. It also depends on the product, the composition of it, the complication of it, the simplicity of it, what other arrangements or technology have been there. So it might work. You might be a super user in your area, like the mountain biking invention as such too. There was no category of mountain bikes, but people wanted to go and jump through rocks and canyons, and they started doing it for themselves, and then people self-selected to go over there. So there are cases of these geniuses and extreme minds, but that's just one aspect of innovation. There is the evolutionary innovation, there is accidental innovation, there is happenstance innovation, there is these minds of the genius innovation, and there is structured innovation. If when the 85% comes, the other, some of them are always successful, and we are not disregarding that, but most of them might not be where you are a super user of that product, or you own one expertise which will be detrimental or critical for that product as such. So trying to make sure you are triangulating your product based on what's happening in the economy, based on what's happening on the pop culture, is pretty important. It's not just like it just has to be trendy or something. See, if you just, so again the thing is, if you just base it on the emotional aspects, it will be trendy and it will die with the trend. If you just basis on, let's say, the functional aspects, it will just be a price war. It will be a commodity, immediate commodity as such. But if you blend in those emotional attributes and the functional attributes together, then we are talking about a sustainable, good product design, and hopefully a sustainable business as such. Again, if anybody says that we will give you a guarantee of design and you will be a business success, that might not be probably true. Investing in design really increases the likelihood of being successful, and there are plenty of other elements, especially the pricing strategy, I would say the branding part of it, and the functional part of it also is really, really important. So, right, being on the target itself is one of the most elemental part of what needs to be done. I was looking at the time over there and trying to see how to wrap this up as such too. So it's nice to see when people say I have an aha moment or I have an hero moment. Those are pretty okay, but maybe not necessarily how things have to be as such. It's have to make sure we go and exhaust those fundamental needs of the market rather than trying to push something on them. Do not try to invent problems for people. They're already there. Try to identify them, try to isolate them, and then solve for them rather than in putting or forcing your technology somehow on them. So that will be one of the things as such for the startups. I know there's so many things and we only can cover so much in 1 hour. But another element is hypothesis, right? When you do hypothesis and present the hypothesis like this is my hunch or this is my hypothesis, the other element immediately that has to be done is understanding what are the knowledge gaps in presenting that hypothesis, because literally what you don't know guides the design research, not the other way around. If you know something, I know the world of, let's say, ceramics casting. Okay, now if you want to go somewhere in beyond that, then you have to try to make sure as you're presenting the hypothesis, you are presenting the gaps also, and then making sure you are fulfilling those gaps as we go forward too. So one thing before we try to close this down is, there are for a startup world or anybody or any idea, there's an idea part of it that's, let's say, in your mind, or let's say that you're thinking they're going to make, I want to be the next Jeff Bezos. That's really good. We want you to be that, so we can be at least a little bit on your coattails. But directly jumping from there to and design, which is production oriented, is not the right lead. There are elements in between, and that's the world of conceptual design. And within that also there's fidelities, right? Means one thing, when we say minimum viable product, that doesn't mean if your product comprises of 10 attributes, let's do with one attribute and see and test with the market. No, you still have to be high concept, less fidelity, and making sure that still the entire attributes are presented as a whole, not one by one, or else it will be very difficult to, or it will be impossible to make sure how you're going to put a dent into that. So we can talk more about that too, but let me try to close this up again, going back in the world of amazing nature, right? Means it's, in summation, means I think we have to look at the most relentless wonder of the natural world itself, and that is life itself. And when I say life, it might be human species, or it might be that COVID virus, or it might be somebody else sneaking in. Life itself, life always wants to expand. Means for the last 3.8 billion years, we have seen so many species coming and going. By the way, 99% of the species on the Mother Earth are extinct. Death is the norm. Survival is an exception. It's the other way if you look at the entire time. I don't want to end this on doom and gloom, but that is a fact. But life always wants to expand. It's always wants to grow. Whatever the organism or creature is, it crashes through barriers creatively, sometimes painfully, sometimes dangerously too, right? But evolution has taught us that life just cannot be contained. It finds its way. And in the same way, coming back to the world of product design, good ideas of products or services, however polarizing they might sound right now, and they should sound polarizing if you're a startup or entrepreneur, but however polarizing they are, they eventually stand to grow to be an indispensable and ubiquitous aspect of our lives. It might happen in 2 years, it might happen in 5 years. There has to be a perseverance factor for that for every startup, but it is going to be an aspect of daily life, because these everyday objects or medical objects or mobility objects, they are the most clear and tangible expression of how we live in this modern world, right? Because that's what we have to think about. We should not just spend too much time on this, and this is my thing. We should spend time on social media, but sometimes it's nice to exit your Instagram, exit your WhatsApp, and just stop daydreaming. You just, as designers or as tinkerers or as engineers or a businessman, we have the sheer power to make these everyday objects beautiful and meaningful and a little bit better and compelling and memorable and desirable, because this is who we are. This is who we are as a design studio, as industrial design studio, industrial and engineering design studio. And we will love to do that, love to help you out. If you have any questions or any suggestions for the next one, please send those to me or Lanea, or for the next RSVP note you can leave over there. So I think I just love doing this, and it's very difficult for me to keep quiet, but I will try to pay respectful of your time. So again, my name is Jivak. I'm an industrial designer here with Sundberg-Ferar, and thank you for your attention. Please let us know what else you want to hear, and till that time, cheers and enjoy.